to LOA Today. I'm Walt Thiessen. With me today is the woman who knows how to set personal boundaries, Alex Standy. This is your daily dose of happy. We are so happy you decided to join us today.
And Alex, I thought I'd share with everybody else what you and I chatted about earlier today because it was fun. It was just funny. I mean, people know we have guests on all the time. We have a good guest, a really great guest joining us today, Allison Graham. But I'm also in the process, every single day of dealing with, who's going to be the next guest on May 13th or whatever it is. And I had a contact from somebody. I actually got contacted from by them in late January, early February, and it was. I mean, they seemed enthusiastic. Their topic seemed okay, and the topic. Well, she had written a book about the psychology of procrastination. And so she had a whole thing on that. And okay, well, this sounds pretty cool. So pick a date and we'll bring you onto the show. A month later, she still hadn't picked a date.
Procrastination got the best of her. I got me again, ADHD.
Yup.
It's nice to know that they're experts in the field,
Right?
Hey, our mess is our message, right?
That's right.
If we have to learn it, we have to teach it.
Well, I'm sure that we'll be able to continue that theme a little bit more today. Allison, you are into a topic that I think just about everybody on the planet can appreciate. That's how to have less stress in your life. And so we're going to be touching on that quite a bit. But first of all, welcome to the program. And second of all, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Awesome to meet both of you and be here for a daily dose of happy. Who doesn't want that, right? That's awesome. So my work is really, it's driven by my belief that a lot of us are making life harder than it needs to be. And there are certain patterns that we have, and it's just part of the human experience. And if we can look at those objectively and start to, get better, and we can lower our stress and make it I like to encourage people to harness empowering stress and lower the destructive stress. And I'm sure we'll talk about how I define those, but it's there's a way to make it there's a way to make stress fun.
Okay, now that ought to be a
really
book
good
title.
thing.
That's a book title right there. All you got to do is write the rest of the book.
It's at least a t-shirt. At least a
t-shirt.
Maybe a coffee cup.
Stress is fun. Who wouldn't want to, that would just be the whole power of positive thinking gone too far, right? Like, if I see it, if I believe it enough, it'll work. I love stress. So,
Well, that's pretty cool. That's a good start right there. So, you laid the groundwork. You said you're going to define for us the difference between what I'll call the good stress and the bad stress. So what's the difference? It's stress, isn't it?
There's a lot of difference. In actual fact, so a lot of times when we talk about stress, we do hear good versus bad. So if you are, have studied this at all, you might call it eustress and distress. So like euphoria, like the good stuff, and then the distress, dis-ease. And I use destructive stress. So the way I look at that is it's going to take you out of your flow state. It's going to make you feel overwhelmed, perhaps anxious. It probably has you living in the future or living in the past. And it's when you're like, each of us knows that feeling, right? And like, maybe you have it. Like for me, when I'm feeling what I consider destructive stress, I get really shallow in my breathing. I come up, I'm like, I can't really focus on any one thing. That to me is destructive stress. And I will break down how we create it. On the other side is the empowering stress. And this is like, sometimes people will say to me, look, I'm so stressed. I need the stress to go away. And I'm like, really? Because I think you'd be bored out of your mind.
I love it.
If you did not have enough stress in your life, especially if you're a high achiever, especially if you're somebody who like cares about your personal and professional development, you need a certain amount of stress. Now, that amount of stress is a little bit different for everybody. And so for years, I have been looking at this, following along with what everybody teaches, your good stress, bad stress. And then all of a sudden, I went through some more really difficult challenges in my life, and people who I love went through some really tough challenges. And I couldn't figure out why I was so stressed, because I know how to manage my stress. I'm like, I can use the good stress, the empowering. I'm not creating the storylines and the negativity and all of the things that are making my life harder than it needs to be. This is legitimately stressful. And so I, in my methodology, added a third bucket, and I call that survival stress. And survival stress is the one you can't escape. It is ingrained in us. It sends the signal that you or someone you love is in danger. And if we're not having those reactions, then something's off, right? Like, I mean, if you're, a family member is getting a cancer diagnosis, right? If you yourself are sick or have some sort of a limiting physical ailment that isn't going to go away, that's an adversity. Right? If you're going to go bankrupt, if you are, your livelihood is, so many families are struggling right now with the inflation and their food, and they're worried about, how am I going to put food on the table for my kids? Like, they're thinking about food versus hydro. That's survival stress. And I don't care how good you are at meditating and how good you are at exercising, you can't escape it. However, if you understand the power of good stress, the empowering stuff, then you can use that to get all of your responsibilities done in the most effective and efficient way. And if you understand how destructive stress is created, you can stop creating it to make the survival stress harder than it needs to be.
Okay.
There's my philosophy on stress.
Wow.
That's the beginning.
All right. Well,
so go at it.
It brings a few thoughts to mind. The first thought that brought to my mind was there are actually a number of different definitions for the word stress. I mean, like dictionary definitions. Like, for instance, one one meaning is to emphasize. I stress this. No, that's nothing really damaging about that. It's just like, that's where I'm focusing my attention.
Yeah, there's so much. And actually, if you wanted to go down the rabbit hole, there are actually like 12 different types of stress. Like, if we're actually talking about stress, but who's going to do that? Like, my whole.
Well, we probably will here. We go down rabbit holes all the time.
Go for it.
Yeah.
I can't take you down that one. I was like, 12, I'm out of here. I got 3. I'm good.
Yeah.
Right? Because like my work, I like to see the patterns in human experience and then create frameworks so it makes it really simple for someone who's way too busy to dive into this work, or who is just like trying to look for little wins to figure out how to apply it. And 12 different types of stress is not the way to go.
I agree with you. Actually, I mean, because that would get a little bit confusing. What I did do, I did a little search. I did a search online to look at the etymology or the origins of the word stress, and it comes back to the word to the Latin word, which is strictus, and that means drawn tight, which is that's really an interesting thing.
Yeah,
that's true, right?
Yeah,
think about it. Yeah. It's like that sensation of everything in your body just like compresses. That's a really good. Oh gosh, Walt, you've done your homework. Down to the roots of our
I'll take it a step further. It also derives from an old French word "estresse," which means narrowness or oppression. I think that's where we start zeroing in on what people really mean when they talk about stress. They feel oppressed by it.
I don't know. That's deep. I have nothing to add. I'm like, yeah.
Well, I think the key word is feeling oppressed, or 2 words. The feeling phrase is feeling oppressed. You feel oppressed. And anytime that I hear the word feel now, these days, after doing this podcast for all these years and talking to all these wonderful experts on so many topics, the moment that I hear the word feeling, I instantly in the back of my mind hear the word choice.
Do you?
Because we get to choose what we feel. We might have an instant reaction to something, but in the longer term, we get to choose what feeling we're going to associate with something. So are we going to choose to feel oppressed? It's the question that's in my mind right now.
All right. So we didn't talk early. Am I allowed to push back on ideas?
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. This, if you can't push back.
All day.
All right. But you'll cut me off if I... No, I'm teasing. I won't go that hard. But here's the interesting thing. I actually don't believe we can choose what we feel. I believe we can influence the words we use to describe a situation that will interpret how we will react emotionally to a situation. Totally all on board for that. But if you're going through a survival stress scenario and you are grieving or fearful, you can't wish your way out of that. You can't be like, I'm not going to feel stressed right now. Yeah, you are. Yeah, you are. And so you're going to feel all of those things. You can't overcome the grief process. You can deny all you want. Heck, I used to stay in denial for an extended period of time. Like when you think about the grief stages, right? Like the denial, the anger, the depression, and then the bargaining, I think is one of them. And then acceptance, right?
Right.
But like, you can't choose your way out of that. And here's why I push back on that. Because I understand the thinking behind it. And I understand when people say it makes sense at a certain level, but people take it for granted, or take it at face value. And then they come to me as a coaching client and they're like, look, I know I shouldn't be focused on this. I can't control it. And I'm like, yeah, but you care about it, don't you? So if we don't process it, if we don't honor the truth of the emotions, we're not going to be able to get by them. We're not going to be able to process them. And then we end up judging ourselves, and then we create even more destructive stress.
I actually agree with almost everything you said there.
Go for it.
Really
Which part was the almost?
About
the almost.
The only thing that I would disagree with is your conclusion that means that we can't choose. I think everything you point to says, yes, we can choose. And let me tell you my side of that thing.
Yeah.
Because I used to believe for most of my life, I believed I could not choose my feeling about any given situation until I was challenged to do so one time, and I actually pulled it off. And I said, well, wait a minute, that's not supposed to be possible. What I learned out of it is that we actually can do it, but that doesn't mean it's easy to do.
For sure.
I'm going to need an example.
I was, on the day that I first experimented with this, I was feeling pretty down. I was feeling like life wasn't getting anywhere, like everything was against me. And I went out and took a walk and went out with the idea of just doing some appreciation, some nature appreciation. And in the course of doing that nature appreciation, to see if I could find a way to feel better about my situation.
Love it.
I did.
And you did. Okay. So that I totally agree with, Walt. Like there's nothing in there that you said that I disagree with.
That's selecting a free feeling though. That's my point. I'm not saying that your instant response is going to necessarily be what you want it to be, but you can always get to where you want to get to have a different way of feeling about something than when you originally started.
Depending on what type of a feeling it is and what the feeling is related to. So if you're having a really depressed day and you're having, you're just feeling really overwhelmed and like we all have that, maybe not all of us, but I used to have a really, really, really negative self-talk. And, it would drive me through a day and it would go not in the right direction. You could imagine. That totally is about something you can correct. Now, not easy, as you said.
Yeah.
But like if you're going through a life adversity, which I like, my definition is a catastrophic external force that will forever change the way you know your life to be.
Okay.
That is what I mean by an adversity. And when we face that, we can't not go through the healing process, which ultimately is the grieving process. And even if we use the pandemic as an example.
Well, okay, I agree with that. But here's the question I have for you.
Yeah.
If you go through the healing process, does that enable you to choose a different feeling?
Absolutely. It's going to take
doesn't that count?
I think of choosing in the moment, right?
I think she means initially.
Yeah. And even like it might take you, who knows how long to grieve something that was really significant.
So would you count a divorce? Would you count a divorce as that kind of event?
Oh, possibly. So interesting. I had a client and he's like, okay, so I explained my whole philosophy around destructive stress, survival stress thing. He said, okay, so let me get this right. The fact that I was upset and feeling all these emotions and disappointment and anger and everything about the relationship splitting up, that was survival stress. I'm like, yeah, because somebody you love, your foundation. And he said, when I would close my door and totally focus on my work just to get away from it all, I accidentally created empowering stress. And I'm like, yep. And he's like, every time I picked a fight with my ex-wife, every time I would refuse to negotiate or sign the paperwork or, would procrastinate all of that or would complain about it, I was creating destructive stress and making the divorce harder than it needed to be. And I'm like, yeah. So within that circle of, the stress design model is you can see the little nuances of it. And you know what? I'll take it another step further that will prove your point in our debate here, Walt.
We do that all the time, so no problem.
Let me offer you another little bit of your side of the story. Okay. I believe in silver lining thinking. I do not believe in positive thinking. So,
because it's distinction.
Very much so. So silver lining thinking is, what would be an obstacle that you might have?
I can't get a job.
Okay. And, well, you know what? Here's a friend of mine who used to hate this because I'd be like, you know what? You didn't get that job, but there's going to be something else that's going to come along and it's going to use your skill set even better. And you know what happened? Another job came along and used your skill set even better.
Of course it did.
But silver lining thinking is not, I'm so glad I didn't get that job. Right? Like, because that doesn't work. I remember I was driving down the highway and a friend of mine, I was speaking at a conference. She came with me and she's like, oh my gosh, I forgot my phone. And I'm like, we got to go back. You can't leave your phone in another city. I mean, that doesn't work. Right. And so we turn around on the highway. And at first I was like, oh, I'm so exhausted, let's get home. And as we were turning back around on the highway, I was like, you know what? All good. Something good will come out of this. And lo and behold, we were going along. We got into traffic jam. There was a huge accident. And when I worked out the timing backwards, if we wouldn't have gone back.
Oh, dear. Yeah.
We would have been right in it.
Yeah.
Potentially. So I think that's a choice to always find a silver lining in any situation that can bring a bit of positivity to it that isn't false. Right? Like I work with a lot of corporate groups. Okay. So I do my training program and then they end up saying we want more and we do group coaching. And so I started up my third session with this group round. And the guy comes on, he goes, look, I am so exhausted from propping up my team and trying to tell them everything is going to be okay. Because there's tons of changes going on.
I can hear my conversation with this guy. My reaction is good. I'm glad. Yeah, that's a good.
Yeah. He's like, I am so exhausted. And I'm like, why do you feel like you need to prop up your team?
Right.
First of all, they know that there are changes afoot. And that they're probably thinking it's actually eroding your trust. It's exhausting you and it's eroding your trust. Now, I'm not suggesting when somebody comes in and they're like, gosh, are we going to lose our job? What's going on with the restructuring, et cetera, that you go, look, I haven't got a clue. And you probably should just start saving your money and downsizing your house because it's right. I don't think that's the answer we need to go, but can we neutralize it? Can we neutralize the negative storylines? That's all I'm asking people to do. Just neutralize it. Don't go all over to magic fairy dust, right? Rainbows, unicorns. Oh, everything's going to be awesome. Just neutralize the negative so we're not adding to the story.
I think something else cool comes when you do that, especially when you do it for the first time. When you do it for the first time, you get better at it.
True that.
Right? So that the next time that something comes along, it's like, well, shoot, I can handle that one. I've done that one before. No big deal.
Yeah.
Bring it on. No, don't tempt. Don't tempt. Don't need any more to deal with. Oh, my goodness.
That's one of the things my husband hates about me is my silver lining thinking.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Drive him nuts about that. That's all right. So why does he not like it?
because I'm too positive about everything.
Mm.
And it gets under his. He was like, "Can I just be negative for 5 minutes?" And I'm like, "Yeah, but where's that going to get you?"
Well, you know what though? Again, now
Here we go. I'm ready. Let's go.
Are we streaming this, or is this just us?
We are. This is fun.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Great.
Live and recorded.
So here's the thing. I'm going to go back to when COVID first happened. Pandemic. We all remember March 2020. And I was said to have the best quarter of my year. I mean, I've been in business for 16 years now. Best quarter so far in my business in that spring. And I remember sitting there on Friday night and I toasted with a glass of wine. This was right before the lockdown. And I said, well, at least I still have my Texas keynote. Good. And by 9 o'clock that night, they'd canceled. And so I had to look at it very strategically because I'm like, hey, resilience, this is my bailiwick. Like I could move through this. And I was like, I didn't know the survival stress moments yet. I didn't understand that. But I did know that anytime I tried to deny negativity when it's real, I did myself emotionally a disservice.
Yes,
because I would try to cover it up with the magic fairy dust. And so the way I got through that tough time was I would literally set a timer for, depending on how much I felt I needed, for 5, 10, 15 minutes. I would get on the floor, I dare say underneath my dining room table with my dog. And I would just like cry and feel the whole fear of the world and let it in. And then my alarm would go off and I would like maybe snooze once if I needed to, just to shift gears. And I'd feel so much relief. That I would come back up and I could be like, all right, what do I need to get done in order to move my company forward?
I got to ask you something too, because it's such an interesting choice of location. Why under the dining room table?
Because it was his favorite spot and he didn't understand I needed someone to cuddle.
Oh, okay. All right.
I don't know. I've always liked under the dining room table. It was something I did at my grandmother's house. It was in my great aunt's house. Oh my God. I'm always under the dining room table.
Oh yeah. There must be some, but you know what, as a kid, didn't you do that? Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's probably something very, what's that word? Can you think of the word I'm looking for? Like very comforting or like home, like childhood fetal position about it. I don't know. Maybe that's why I did, but it was just because that's where my dog was. And when I'd be like, come on out, time to cuddle. He's like, shouldn't you be working? Like, why are you bugging me on my afternoon? Why haven't we gone to the office yet?
Right.
This is weird. So anyway.
That is funny though. I love the way that we're carrying on this conversation though, because it kind of illustrates really nicely how our feelings change with our thought process. And the thought process is both an emotional thought process and a mental thought process, as well as a physical thought process. It's all three kind of wrapped into one. And spiritual, you could actually throw that one in there too. And that combination is that's where our power comes from, our ability to transmute, to change this into that, to say, okay, this is where I am right now. What's going to take for me to get to that over there? And that's an amazing power that we have. We may not appreciate it, but that's an amazing power.
And we often may not do it.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Because we've talked ourselves out of it or whatever else.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. We can look at it and be like, yeah, I know I should be doing that, but it doesn't mean we're going to do that. Like that's all a part of it.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because this whole, journey of becoming self-aware and wrapping and understanding the cyclical nature of physical, mental, emotional, and sure, we can add in the spiritual piece of it. And, I have, part of what launched all of this work and this body of like my whole methodology is the fact that I have chronic neuropathic pain. And I've had that now for 17 years. It was a surgery that went wrong and it's, it sort of goes up and it comes down and it goes all around, but it's quite intense. And I'm, I'm always trying to encourage people to recognize you don't know what's going on behind people's lives when they're off the
True
camera.
story.
So, you know, to just to paint a picture, I had a nap before we came here and a call with my internist. And then I came on with you guys. And so I think what happens is when you understand this nature of how physical can interact with your mental and your emotional, right? It's like if your physical being is off, then it's going to make it easier to be negative and to not feel like doing something, right? So it influences our emotions, and then our being gets depressed a bit. And so having that ability to be so in the present moment, embrace with the wholeheartedness all of the you know, I often call it the suckage, right? The stuff that sucks in our lives. And we don't want to diminish that, but then still show up to do what you need to do in a way that you love doing it. And with a kitty cat on your on your hands, right, in your arms. Aw. Winston, don't you see the cue of what you should be doing?
I'm saying Rusty's looking rather lazy right now.
This is your camera. He's like, I'm sleeping.
My dog just said, I don't work for free. And he just went back to bed.
Enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
This guy's kind of figured out when I start a show, and he's gotten into the habit now. Whenever the show starts, okay, it's time for me to get in the way, get in front of the microphone, up against it. Yeah, okay, this is my cue. I get it.
Yeah.
Hi, Joy.
Aww. Is that Joy?
This is Joy. Yeah.
Aw, that's a perfect name for your podcast.
She loves the mic. I mean, he loves the mic. I'm sorry.
Joy is a male, by the way.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's great. Yeah. So anyway, but here's the thing. We're laughing. And I think that that's such a great medicine.
Yes.
And it can't, like, all of the humor, all of the, you know, little quips and the fun that we have can't diminish the fact and the severity of what many people are going through right now.
Oh, sure.
And it's like, hear the message in the laughter, feel the laughter to find that joy. Oh my gosh, perfect timing. Joy. Every time that word comes in, just walk by. And, you know, people are in so many ways, they're isolating more and more. They're burning out. They're feeling like they're suffocating. Yeah. You know, I can't tell you the number of executives who I've talked to who behind the scenes are saying like, look, I thought I was going to be like, I was going to get to this point in my career. And I understand these are first world problems, right? Like I make a lot of money, but I can't breathe. I can't think. I feel like I'm not giving anything left to my family because I'm so exhausted. Like this is a really serious issue that we're facing, and we need to be able to have fun with it. Right. And find those little moments of humanity. And don't you think? Like, I think so.
And it's not just the executives. I mean, it's the lower echelon workers too, maybe even more so, you know, the ones who are working 3 jobs just to, you know, keep food on the table or whatever. They're like stressed to the max.
You know what? And it's you know, here's the thing. And sometimes people will say to me, well, you know, I know people always have it worse. And the reality is there will always be somebody who has it worse than you. And from my perspective, that is intended to be perspective, not an elixir for your own suffering and your story.
Yeah, very good point. Yes.
Doesn't take it away. Right. And I think snuggle time. Okay.
He's really upset. He's actually going at me with his paw. Like, come on, you're supposed to be paying attention to me.
I saw claws there.
Well, that's the way his paw works. Yeah, it's true. Fortunately, I have the glasses in the way. Otherwise, I'd be really upset with him. But yeah.
Right.
Cute. But like every person, and I think that's why we end up with people with such severe mental health challenges all across the board. Right? They don't want to necessarily share it. And then they feel embarrassed because, well, maybe I don't deserve to have this sensation. I should be happier. I should be able to choose my mood. I should be able to. A lot of shouldn't. And it's just, you know what you need to do is what you're in right now. And we want to make the best of it with what the tools you have.
Not to mention all the stigmas that can be attached to it.
Ooh. I think that's changing, though, don't you?
It definitely is. Yeah, it's a lot better than it used to be, but it's not like they've gone away. They're still around. They're they aren't in first place anymore.
Which place are they in, and what's in first?
Well, they're probably still in the top 5. I'm not sure. We could probably debate that one, but yeah, they haven't gone away entirely. Let's put it that way.
Yeah,
there's still. I mean, there are. We had a guest yesterday who was simultaneously exploring the ability to release and express emotions, negative emotions, but feeling embarrassed that he was doing it. So clearly there was some stigma going on there.
So why is there such a fear? Okay, so let's play this game. Imagine you are a child and you fall off your bike, and you're fortunate enough for an adult to come and pick you up, and they take you in and they, clean your wound and they put a Band-Aid on it, and then they kiss it better and they go, doesn't hurt anymore, does it? And you as a child are thinking,
yeah, right.
I don't know what's happening here, but it still hurts. But
like, what else are you trying to sell me here? Yeah, okay.
Right. But we're going for ice cream, so I'm gonna agree.
Right.
Right?
Chocolate
And then
with sprinkles.
Right. And then we get a little older, and all of a sudden, we're bullied or whatever happens on the playground. Oh, they're just jealous, or, oh, they're just, like all of these throwaway lines. Oh, don't take it personally. It's not about you. It's about them. Well, it kind of feels personal.
It does.
Right?
Sure.
And so but then we're like, okay, I'm going to stuff it down again.
Mm-hmm.
And then we become adults and we get out into the world. We were taught, don't cry. Right. And the reason we don't want other people to cry is because we don't want to have to feel the emotions, the empathy of watching somebody else cry.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
It makes you uncomfortable.
Right. But they need to cry.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because they have something to cry about. So let's allow them to process that emotion, like energy and motion. Right. And so we've got to give it some movement, because what I found is like I used to have this misguided belief that happiness, if I wasn't happy, I was failing. And at the end of the day, right? But the thing is, happy is not neutral. Neutral is neutral.
Mm-hmm.
Happy is in relation to sad.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Joy, enter stage left, is in relation to despair.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, we need all of it. And when I finally figured that out, and I think it was the happiness trap that taught me that, was that happiness was not the natural state of being. It was one state of being, and we had to be. The book I read years ago. And so now it's like, okay, when I'm feeling the sadness or the despair or the pain or whatever it is that's going on, or the fear that's legitimate, I'll lean into it. Not to get stuck in it and not to become a victim, but to process it and to go, oh yeah, that's awful. Or yeah, that sucks. And just, how does that feel in my body? And live it and give it and honor it. Give myself the space and the grace to feel it, so that, because I'm thinking, hey, if I'm feeling this crappy thing down here, one day I'm going to be way up here. Right. Like, cause it's the opposite ends of the spectrum. So that's my thinking around emotions. But I think we're taught to avoid the low ones because nobody likes how they feel, and nobody likes to have other people around them feeling it. And then pretending we need to be happy, when if we just allowed ourselves to feel the we could actually feel happy more often. Absolutely true. Yeah. In fact, when you were talking about how we're basically taught, don't cry. That's being taught that. It reminded me of, there was actually a song, Big Boys Don't Cry. It came out from the 1950s. And it epitomized the whole, and it was aimed at everyone, but it was especially aimed at little boys, because boys, I mean, you're going to grow up to be a man, and men don't cry. That's not allowed. And
I hate that.
It is such a destructive teaching. It's incredibly destructive.
Alex, I'm glad that we should. Sorry, I was going to say we should bring your husband in and get his opinion on that. He's one of them. He's one of them.
Yeah.
I was like, if you don't cry when I walk down the aisle, I'm going to be so mad. And he was like, you're going to be mad.
Aww. Did he cry?
I don't know. I couldn't see. My contacts fogged up. But he says he didn't. I have pictures. He didn't look like he was crying.
He looked like he was smiling. I was at her wedding. He looked like he was pretty happy.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But I wanted that moment. I wanted that, oh, he lost it because she's so beautiful, and I didn't get it. Tears.
Yeah, but it's not about that wedding moment. It's about the lifetime when he wakes up with you and goes, "Oh my God, look at what I have."
Yeah, I guess so.
I can spin anything. I got you covered.
Yeah, well, if you want to put logic to it, fine. But,
Crushing your childhood dream.
Yeah. I've only dreamt about it for 38 years. I wanted my crying moment. No.
Oh my goodness.
They do it on TV. It should happen in real life.
Good. I don't know. Where are those W Network, storylines? They have to come from somewhere. Anyway.
Oh, man.
Well, I guess that's part of what we were talking about earlier, isn't it? Where these storylines come from.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it's interesting because I don't know where they come from. I think it comes sometimes from our youth, from our patterns, from the people around us, how we choose to, what we choose to put into our mind each and every day. Like, I've made a conscious decision, like every night I go to bed and I'm watching a YouTube video of some sort that is educational and educational from a personal development journey. Like I'm watching all the impact theories, like all the big ones, Ed Milet show, etc. Like watching everybody constantly, because it's like, I could do that, or I could watch something that's going to drain my energy and put me into a negative state before I go to bed. I don't want to watch the news before I go to sleep, because it's just going to work on the subconscious and make me even more anxious.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. Because basically what you're saying is I'm taking my choice. I'm taking control of it.
Yeah.
It's going to be mine. And you can't change it. Sorry. Good luck. But it's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen. And, sometimes you're going through a survival stress situation, and, it can be really tough to turn that off and to, be able to sleep and rest and recharge and, feel okay. But if we want to practice the feelings of joy and happiness and the ability to shift the storylines and neutralize them, at least, like, sure, let's create a nice one over here, but give your mind at least 3 options. Because see, this is one of my biggest things I work with people on, is their storyline, right? So we have this negative storyline, and they think they need to go over here to positive, as we were talking about before. And it's like, okay, I just need you to neutralize it. But if you only give your brain 2 alternatives, okay? So let's say, people will worry about a meeting that's coming up or a job interview, okay? And they spend time worrying about it, and they're like, oh my gosh, like I've got this meeting, or this client called and said, they want to talk to me about something. And the natural default is, well, are they going to fire me? Right? Okay. So there's the negative storyline. And power positive thinking would be, come up with well, are they going to give me a promotion? Right? Like all the way to the other end. And in the absence of a third option, your brain will default to the negativity.
Sure.
It'll call BS on this, big one. So I'm like, okay, they just want to review the contract details. Well, that's very neutral, isn't it? And maybe they want to give me a promotion, and maybe they want to fire me. Well, at least your brain is confused enough to go, could be any of them. And maybe you stop worrying a little bit.
Yep.
Right? You can detach from it.
Yeah. The proximity to where you're at is really, really important.
Yeah.
I think I agree with you. I think that many positive thinking teachers tend to forget that you can't leap. You can only take small steps. So if you're feeling depressed, going for joy is probably not your best bet.
Right.
It's just too far away.
Yeah.
But if
It's almost unfeasible because it's too far away.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you're willing to go from depressed to feeling pissed off about something, that's a step up, first of all. And it's nearby. You can reach that one.
That's right. And you can, and it's in the little moments and in the overall arching theme of your life. Right? Like, I have a friend, we're always joking, and she's like, I just want the magic win. Right? She's like, oh, I'm going to do every day is a different idea. And I'm like, if you would have spent the last 6 months when you chased a new idea every 3 days, right, just doing the boring plan that we initially set out for you, you would be fine. But it's like we want the big leaps, right? And sometimes you get them, but you can have success and you can have failure. And if your stress response, if you have these patterns where you're misplacing your emotions and building the negative storylines and, engaging in all those habits that are the barriers to performance that I call them, then you know what? You're going to do that in moments of failure and you're going to do it in moments of success because your patterns do not change until you change them. The circumstances don't matter.
Alex is having a real strong moment right now.
No, because Allison's right. My husband doesn't need to be on this episode because you're talking to him right now. Like, he's an all or nothing type of person. Like, I want my tattoo shop. If I can't get it right now, I'm not doing it.
Yeah, forget tattoos. Close them all down.
Yeah, shut them all down. Throw out the ink. It's done. And I'm like, but dude, there's levels to this shit. Like, calm down. It'll get there.
Could you have 5 people over for a tattoo party? I don't even know if that's legal, but you know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm like,
can you just do a friend's tattoo? And
step 1, and you're all the way at 10, and it's like we got to get to 0.5 before, right? Like, I need you to stop and breathe. Like, it's gonna be a while. But he's just so impatient. He's so impatient. And he's it's a big ball of stress.
Well, you know what part of that impatience is? And this is something that took me a long time to learn. I finally learned that really you can learn to take the big strides, but in order to do that, you have to take the small steps first. If you try to skip the small steps, you'll never get to the big strides.
Yeah, he's got to learn that. He's not listening to me.
That is the way to learn how to get there. You can have this huge jump. You can actually have them rarely. But you got to learn to do the small steps first or you'll never get there.
Yeah.
So the imagery that is in my mind is, do you remember track and field? Did you guys do track and field when you were a kid?
Forced to. Yes.
Okay.
Forced to. Oh, okay.
All right. And Walt was like, yeah, let me in that sandbox and long jump. But not me. I just was like, saw that as a reason to skin my knee. But anyway,
yes.
If you think about the imagery of that, the longest jumping, like long jump, right? You know, where you run, and then you get the big leap is exactly what Walt just said. You got to do the small jump so you can get the big leap.
That's right.
Ooh. Yeah.
My brain can't stop. Yeah. That's
I'm using next time this happens, I'm using that one.
All right. Yeah.
It's good. It's a good analogy, the long jumper. Yeah.
Yeah. So, you can't exactly what was the one? I think it's called short jump when you literally just like stand from nothing and then you have to jump further ahead. Do you know, like there's the running long jump.
That's a standing broad jump.
Okay, so he really did do track.
I did not, but I happen to know that one actually.
Yeah, I don't think we called it anything that fancy. I think we called it short jump. We're like, just stand there, but you don't get as far.
No.
Right? So there you go. That's the. Yeah. Anyway, that was the imagery that came as you were sharing. It was
good imagery.
Something else you mentioned that I think really needs to be drawn out some more because I think it's excellent. You talked about what we call polarity or contrast. You talk about how you have to have the negative in order to appreciate the positive. That the feeling bad goes along with the feeling good. That they're two sides of the same coin in a sense. And one of the best things that I learned from guests here on the podcast actually was truly valuing that so-called negative side of the equation. Finding that not only, I don't like it necessarily. I don't have to like it. It's not about you must like this thing, but you can learn to appreciate it. And that on the surface, that seems impossible.
Does it?
Until you dig in deeper and you find, I guess it really isn't impossible. In fact, it's quite possible to do. I just kind of made this little thing in my head that said, well, if I don't like it, then it must not be possible to appreciate it.
You know, what I like to do in those situations is I start my sentence off with, but at least. So it's like, but at least and that's where you can put your silver lining thought in after that sentence. But at least it's like, well, my car broke down, but at least AAA didn't take 3 hours, or but at least it's not snowing, something like that.
Yeah. And at least you have AAA.
Yes, exactly.
That's right.
And somebody can come get you, right? Like groceries are through the bill, like through the roof, right?
Yeah.
And I go grocery shopping and I literally do a little prayer of gratitude every time I pay the bill.
Oh,
Good practice.
Seriously.
Yeah. Like I just am like, thank God, like that I can do this.
Yeah.
And not every day, have I been able to. Like it's been a lot of roller coasters, 17 years in business. I mean, I've been through the ups, I've been through the downs, and some pretty low lows. And, detaching from money and your service is probably one of the most powerful things I ever did.
It's an interesting thing too, because even after we become skilled at doing exactly what you just did, which I love, finding a way to appreciate the fact that I can buy groceries despite the fact that grocery prices have gone up. It's also important to recognize doesn't mean you're going to be immune to seeing a price rise and having a response to it. I had that today. The milk went up 30 cents. I said, what? The milk went up 30 cents. Oh yeah, I could afford it. How good.
Right.
I had to go through the first one to get to the second one.
Right. And it's like, and you also don't know, like I have a lot of friends who lost their businesses in COVID. Right? Like who just were really, really successful and it all came crumbling down. And you don't know what's around the corner. You don't know how, like we just have to embrace it and then trust ourselves because we don't want to live in a state of fear, right? Like that future, that's just another layer of destructive stress. But if we can trust ourselves to deal with the worst, that we can rise above it, that we can go through it, not even rise above it, just go through it, feel the suckage, process it, and then keep on going. Like that becomes a state of flow in life that I believe and I hope people can get to.
So let's talk about something you kind of alluded to there. We really were going to talk about it at the beginning, then we got off on this really great rabbit hole, and I love the fact that we did it. But good stress, or I'm not even sure I like the word good stress, but productive stress, let's put it that way. How would you describe what is the essence of useful, productive, helpful stress?
It's flow state. So I am like I call it empowering stress because I don't even like, again, good stress, right? It's kind of boring, but like here's how it works. There are 3 elements that you need, and apparently the sun is going down or it's changing, and I think I've lost my light, so nobody will judge.
Hey, the good news is 99% of the people catching this are listening only, so you're okay.
Oh my goodness! Well, welcome. Okay, yeah. So the sun is moving. Anyway, I digress. Empowering stress has 3 things. We need a deadline that's reasonable, a goal that's focused, and accountability that we can't get out of.
Ooh.
So we can manufacture our days to get these states of flow into our days. If we don't have focused work blocks, that's, what people could call them, focused work blocks. You can call them whatever you'd like. It's like that is a state of flow. No notifications, no interruptions. Just I'm going to get this thing done. And when we're going through really tough times, especially in our lives, we want to be sure that we're using that formula to get the biggest, like, so we can get all the little naggy things off our list, right? Because it's like those little things that can just hang over our head for weeks because we got to do it. Like, I can't believe the number of people who are like, I got to do my taxes. And it's like a really big deal. It's like, you know what? Just do the taxes. I mean, it sucks.
Whoa, wait a minute. Just do the taxes. I mean, come on, hold on.
Right. Do what part? But here, so what I end up doing with things like that is like, I break it down. Like I did with a client the other day. I'm like, look, you got these taxes. You got to get them done. So we're going to go get the box of receipts. Step 1, just do that. Next time, right? Go get this, sit down and open the box of receipts. Like, I mean, you can make it as granular as you want because it can like trick your body or your mind into momentum. right? When we break things down. But back to the concept around empowering stress is it's like, okay, we need to put a time limit around it. We need to know that there is a break coming up at the end so that we can actually because if we work for 4 or 5 hours straight and then you get up and you go, oh my gosh, I'm so hungry. I'm like, I can't even move. I'm so stiff. And I haven't gone to I got to go, the bathroom right after drinking a thing of water. Like, I can't believe the number of people who work like that. And it's like, no. We want to be sure that you're getting your body and your mind a chance to come away from it, accomplish something, and then go away from it and then come back and accomplish something and then go away from it and come back and accomplish something. And we actually accomplish more when we have that sort of structure in our lives around, and that's a way to use empowering stress.
I love that. I'm thinking about that in a number of different contexts. One context is as a business owner. I'm a small business owner.
Yeah.
And as a business owner who employs people, my way of accomplishing what you just described is to delegate like crazy.
Oh, period.
Just delegate. How much, what's left on my plate that I haven't delegated yet? How can I delegate that?
Interesting. So here's, all right, back to permission to speak freely.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Now you obviously have staff who can absorb the delegation.
Oh yeah, you have to have that part figured out.
Oh yeah, that's key.
Right. Because in the small business world, you're the leader, so you can control that, right? Like, you can get more staff on, you can expand your width, like, your depth, your skill set, etc. What I'm seeing happening in the corporate market, to your point before, yes, the executives might be stressed, but so are the people who are working for them, the whole team.
Oh yeah.
And so when this person decides they're going to be a masterful delegator, and I'm going to give everything away, and they're like, oh, I got nothing left on my plate. Life is good. And their whole team is ready to quit because they don't have any bandwidth and they're freaking out.
And I would suggest that that's not actually delegating.
I agree. Yes, but it can happen.
Yeah. Oh, there are lots and lots of really sucky managers, because that's really what it is. It's a manager who doesn't know what the freak he's doing. He thinks he can just dump on other people, and that's delegating. That's not delegating. That's burying.
What a great distinction.
It
so
really
how do you
is.
define delegation in a good way, and how do you protect your team from doing that? Or do you just know that they have the bandwidth and you expect them to get it done?
No, not at all. In fact, I'm always interested in evaluating for my own thought process, how far are they having to push themselves? Is it too much? In other words, am I overworking them in any way? Are there ways I can take the pressure off of them? In fact, that's one of the best ways that I find to go about doing delegation, because when I'm in a situation, it doesn't happen much anymore, but I used to run into it quite a bit. If I'm in a situation where there's nobody I can delegate to because everybody is so overwhelmed, it's a beautiful signal to me that my system sucks.
Exactly.
So I need to rework the system at that point.
Yeah. There is something
now that's something I may need to find also. I may need to find somebody else to delegate that to. And I'll probably have to come up with a budget to do that. I'll probably have to come up with funding to do that. That is part of my job. But by the same token, what's so wrong with that? Why are we going to run away from that? Why are we going to go out of our way to just dump on people instead of having to deal with that?
Right. And then making your problems everybody else's problems.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that's not a good way to do it. But then there's the other thing is you can't delegate your body and you can't delegate your brilliance.
No, you can't.
That's a word.
Yeah. So everything else probably has a system that can be delegated. Right? Like, there is probably some way. And I used to say you can't delegate your body, your mind, or your brilliance. And now with like Chat GPT, I feel like I just call it chat because like the GPT is like hard for me to say. So chat, the mind can be delegated as well. So, I think to some degree, but that's another conversation. So I think like your brilliance, because you can't delegate it to the point where you have nothing left to do.
Well, actually, I think you can delegate to the point where you have nothing left to do. What you can't do is delegate to the point where everybody else has too much to do, because that's not actually delegation.
Right, but how could you be here? You couldn't delegate this part of your job.
Just because I can delegate something doesn't mean I want to.
Ooh, okay. Yeah. But if you were to say, like, in terms of
let me take it back. Let me take it back a step to what you were talking about before, because I think it tied in really quickly. You talked about brilliance. I'll translate brilliance into creative.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'll take that.
The creation process is where brilliance comes in, and where it comes from too.
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately, any job that we do, and I'm using the word job loosely because it actually goes beyond a career job, but any job that we're doing, if it's a job that we really want to keep doing, it's because we feel creative in that space. Otherwise, we wouldn't want to do it. There would be no point to it, other than getting some income. But beyond that, there would be no point to doing the work. So why would I want to delegate that part? I mean, if I want to delegate that, then the question really becomes, why do I want the job in the first place? What's the point?
True. Although I don't know if everybody's in a position that we're in where we love our work.
I agree.
I guarantee they're not.
Totally agree. Yeah. And we have a long way to go on this one. No doubt about that.
Oh, yeah.
Part of that, I think, is a conversation that goes, again, beyond the 3 minutes that we have left. But that conversation has to really come down to your own self-development, kind of like what you were talking about earlier, Allison. Where are you giving your attention? You give your attention to, at the end of the day, watching that YouTube video that helps you with your self-development, rather than that draining TV show or whatever it is. Yeah. That's just an example of the kind of work that you have to do in order to get to the point where you can do the kind of delegation we're talking about.
That's right. Yeah.
Oh, puppy.
Yeah. Hey, Winston, I know, honey. Oh, did you hear them through my earphones?
It's his turn.
Hi, baby.
Where is my dog?
Oh my gosh. I know. There's somebody here, isn't there, out there? Yeah, there's activity out there. And he's like,
yeah.
Oh, I want to go. No. It's like, we got 2 minutes left. You can make it. You
got this. Well, before we can't lose you yet, because we got to get some information from you. Okay. So first of all, we love this. This has been a great conversation. Getting to know you, getting to know your teachings and so forth. Somebody who wants to work with you, how do they find you?
AllisonGraham.com. That's the hub for everything. And then I've created just a sign up sheet for your community. It's /LOA.
Oh.
And so you can go there, and I send out a weekly lift up. So it's just a really, I wouldn't say it's a quick read, but it's some sort of motivational or challenge or something that is there. Okay. And then I'll add in some sort of a, personal capacity development, or I don't know, I'll figure out something that'll be on that sheet, just special for your people who are like looking for that dose of happiness, right?
Yeah.
So they can go to AllisonGraham.com /LOA.
All right. We'll make sure we put that into the show notes too, to make it easy for people to get there.
Love to see it.
Please do.
Very cool. This has been really great. Just so much loved it. Alex, I mean, if you had to pick one thing, what's the thing that jumps out to you more than anything else out of all the stuff we've talked about here?
Oh, I liked all her ideas and definitions of stress. That's what got me, because I was like, I know someone like that and that and that. It's not me, but I know somebody.
No judgment.
No. Realistically, I don't subscribe to stress. So yeah.
There we go. Well, my next book is going to be called The Stress Illusion. So stay tuned. That's coming out late this year. So
all right.
Look at that. We got an exclusive.
Yeah, that's cool. I like that. Yeah. One last thing I need to do, and that's to tell you something, Allison, that I like to tell to all the givers who come onto this program, because you definitely are a giver. And givers give so much because they come into a podcast like this one. They do the writing, they do all the stuff that they're reaching out to people in a lot of different ways. And there are many people you'll never meet, you'll never see, who are helped by stuff that you put out there, and you never see it. You don't. Well, sometimes you do. If you're lucky enough, you get a contact. You oh wow, I heard you on the podcast, or I read the article you wrote. But most of the time, you don't see it, you don't hear it. And I think we should be recognized for it anyway. So on behalf of all those people who you've never met, you've never seen, thank you for what you do and for what you're continuing to do, because it's so important.
That makes my heart sing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Alex. Your heart is always singing because it's making my heart sing all the time. So we sing in duet here. Yeah.
Yeah, you two are awesome together.
I hope it's
this
in
has been
tune.
really fun. This is a lot of fun, a lot of laughs.
So thank you guys very much. Thank you, podcast listeners everywhere. We'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.